call this meeting of the Grafton Planning Board on August 25th, 2025 to order. We have one member remote, so we'll do a roll call. You want me to? I've got my list here. Justin.
Present.
Greg.
Present.
Michael.
Present.
David.
Present.
Raymond.
Here.
Thank you.
And Bob
Yeah.
is here, right?
And Bob is here. Fiona is
Present.
present, and I assume
Yes.
that
Natalia's on there.
Natalia is somewhere.
Present.
Good. All right. I think we can move along to public input. This is when, if you want to talk to us about something that's in our purview that is not otherwise on the agenda tonight, this is your chance. You raise your hand either in the room or on the internet, except that there's no one in the room. And there aren't a lot of people on the internet.
Yeah, we do have an attendee.
Okay. Apparently, there's no public input. Nothing up here? Nothing
No.
up here? All right. Draft decision. Request for site plan approval, SPA 2025-01, 277 Providence Road, Elevate Enterprises LLC. You are aware of the problem in the next, well, the second to the last line in the first paragraph?
Got a new board member here, David Robbins Hassinger, named in that paragraph.
Oh, sorry. Whoopsie. I will fix that. Just making people up now.
After reading through the entire draft decision, that is the only thing I found worthy of mention.
Good.
Right.
Good catch. I missed that one, but
As did I.
Well, that's because your name isn't
True.
mangled like that.
true.
Does anybody have anything?
I move we grant the the decision as drafted with any potential changes to be discussed during discussion, along with the David Robbins Hassinger fix.
And may I assume that the motion includes all findings favorable and all waivers granted?
It does. Thank you for adding those extra words.
With that, I will second the motion.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. None on the internet? You're,
No
you're
hands
watching
raised.
the internet, aren't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no hands raised.
All right. Well, in that case, we'll take a vote. Justin,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
and I vote aye. The motion carries unanimously. We're done with that one. On to town meeting articles, draft ADU. Is Gabe with us?
Yes.
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 Go for it. Oh, yeah.
Hello.
I see him.
Thanks for having me tonight. Fiona, are you able to share this, or do you want me to?
I got it.
Okay.
There we go. So just tell me when you want me to scroll, Gabe.
Yeah. So, thanks for having me tonight. As part of I believe it's a DLTA, District Local Technical Assistance Project. We're putting together an amendment to the zoning bylaws that would accommodate the state's new accessory dwelling unit regulations. And so I worked with Fiona and Tracy Sharkey, the building commissioner, and we went through, I think, a version that I believe Fiona and Dave had worked on in January before all the regulations were kind of out in public. And we went through it and kind of tried to create, I think it's like a pretty simple, in a good way, just like a very straightforward way to accommodate the state's regulations. And so I think for the board and for the public, I think the main thing to understand about what the state is requiring regarding accessory dwelling units is that basically within certain dimensional regulations, so it's either basically up to 900 square feet or half the size of the dwelling unit the accessory dwelling unit is attached to. The state is expecting towns to approve these bylaws, or no, not like approve the units without any special permit process. Basically, they have to be allowed by right, and so it's kind of. I guess I can go through this line by line if that's helpful for the board.
Do they have to be approved by right, or do they have to be approved without requiring a discretionary permit? In other
It's a
words,
discretionary
site plan,
permit,
I'm
yeah.
talking about site plan.
Yeah. It's without discretionary permit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's without
So-
a discretionary permit. Yeah.
So the
Apologies.
site plan is valid to do.
I believe so.
Yes.
Correct, Fiona?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, you can,
Yeah.
but, you know, kind of similar to what we've been discussing for the past applications, or even just before, a site plan approval is like is a mechanism for approval. It's
Yeah.
not. It is. There is no discretionary authority that the board has.
Right,
with site plan
right.
approval.
In the eyes of the law and appropriate regulations, site plan approval is considered an as of right.
Correct.
It's as of right with board review, but it is still as of right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because sometimes there are still, maybe everybody doesn't exactly agree about something about it, and, you know, we have to decide what's right.
Mhm.
So,
So- oh.
just quickly, procedurally then, they're just going and getting a building permit if it meets all the criteria, or are they submitting something to us?
So that's what we'll need to nail down today. So we'll elaborate a little bit based on our conversation with Tracy, but we're trying to discern what the board's comfort level would be requiring a site plan ahead of time prior to filing a building permit, or just allowing these by right. The state has basically, you know, the long and short of it is that they're protected use under the Dover Amendment, so we can't be overly regulating them. And sometimes with site plan approval, like, I think that the lines get a little bit blurred. So, you know, and with site plan approval, and we'll get into this, Gabe. So, Gabe,
Yeah.
I'm just going off on a tangent, so just give me a minute. But with site plan approval, there is some additional benefits, like allowing for peer review and doing kind of an additional deep dive into stormwater and those types of things. But with a 900 square foot essentially addition, the board should evaluate if that's something that they need/want to do. We have a proposal in here. It's basically a tiered approach based on the size of the protected use ADU. So up to 900 square feet. Tracy, our building commissioner, had suggested just allowing that by right, like you would a single family home. When you exceed the 900 square foot threshold, but up to 1,200 square feet, we thought it was appropriate that the board should be able to implement site plan approval. And then, you know, anything higher than that is different territory, so.
I favor starting with the most oversight, site plan in all cases. And as we see how it goes, we can always go back and get down to back off from it. But there are going to be unknowns, and there are going to be people who want to be heard about this happening to them, the neighbors with this happening to them. Having a chance to come here and talk about it
Okay.
is not a bad idea. This is a whole new thing. Nobody knows about it at this point, except the people that are put in applications.
Some people know, yeah.
Just as a overall thing, is this proposed change basically closing some loopholes, or is it giving the ability for us to have any oversight at all versus if we didn't do this, it would be a by right automatic and they could just go to the building commissioner.
Yeah, that's so. As far as the state is concerned, my understanding is this is distinct from the MBTA's. Like, MBTA zoning is like the other big thing that the state has kind of expected towns to implement in the last few years. That's a case where the state is expecting towns to have bylaws in place. In this situation, I don't think there's there's not a requirement that towns have bylaws in place, but yeah, like you said, I think otherwise it would basically be up to the building commissioner approving these within, approving building permits up to 900 square feet. And yeah, like you said, otherwise the town would not have a ton of, or the planning board would not have a ton of control over the process. And additionally, if the board wants to allow ADUs above 900 square feet, if assuming you were a town with no accessory apartment bylaws, there would be no way to implement them without writing a bylaw. So it's not so much about loopholes, but more about kind of establishing the standards so that it's clear for applicants. They can look at the zoning bylaws to see what's expected. Whereas for the ADUs, I mean, I don't, maybe they would know that the state legalized them like they did, but I don't think that's very widely known. So
You made a distinction at 900 and then another at 1200. What is that? There's something in the state law that makes that distinction?
no, so
So
900.
that's a number that's a number that you people picked.
That's kind of a number that it seems. So I don't know where that number, the 1,200 square foot number, came from. So 900 square feet is what the state is expecting. The 1,200 is, I think some towns have been going with that number, and it is present in some of the state's model bylaws
Right.
as kind of a larger ADU that you could allow by, a special permit or something like that. So that's kind of an arbitrary number. But that is what it seems like towns are settling on as the upper limit. Though I do know in some towns they're thinking as high as half the size of the building. Because if you had some sort of mansion and they wanted to build some, big ADU addition, some towns are okay with them doing that. So it's really, yeah, the upper limit number is at the board's, or, at town meeting's discretion.
The upper limit, okay.
But you could just block it at 900 square feet if you wanted to under the state law.
Let's do
Yeah.
that.
That would be
I
simple.
want to do that. Anybody else want to do that?
I think,
Till we see what
I
happens.
think that ties into an issue that I had reading through this. And adding that 1,200 thing complicates how this is written, complicates what we want to, and it's not clear that, to keep it simple. To keep it simple, we go with the 900 square foot or half the size of the principal dwelling, if whichever is less or whichever is more. I think it's whatever. Just talk about the 900. So,
Whichever's less.
Still with site plan?
well, that's another question.
Right.
So as a starting point for continuing the discussion, if we would like to stick with the 900, then we would end up having two categories. We'd have ADUs of up to 900 square feet, and we have our existing accessory apartments, which is anything that's not, doesn't fit within the ADU. So, that avoids the question of adding another tier, which complicates how the language is written in the use table and the proposed section 13. I had some issues with, trying to make that all work in my head. So we can avoid all that by just keeping it, the 900 square foot ADU, which is by right or special permit if for anything additional. But one per lot is by right,
Right.
which could be site plan.
Right.
And anything other than that one by right per lot, we have the discussion of either. I mean, we can just kind of fit. We have the discussion under state law as to whether we even allow more than one 900 square foot ADU.
That's
If we do allow it, it has to be by, or it can be by special permit. And I think actually the statute requires it to be a special permit.
That's right. It does.
So-
You don't have to
So,
allow.
so
but
then we basically have two special permit categories. The accessory apartment, which is not
different.
anything that doesn't fit within the definition of ADU. We have the second special permit category, which is an ADU in excess of one per lot.
Right.
And then we have the by right ADU one per lot, which we can then debate whether we want that by right to be building permit only or
Or-
site plan review.
Yes, that's a great summary of where we're at. Thank you, Dave. And I would just that so that tiered suggestion that we included in this draft, it was for consideration of the board. It was really in response to a suggestion from the commissioner to consider having a protected use ADU as a Y or by right only in the use table. And she had said if the board was comfortable with that, maybe perhaps you could propose anything higher than the 900 up to 1200. So that would be under their, review. It was kind of a suggestion that we threw out there. I do agree that I think sticking to either under or over 900 square feet is simple and straightforward and easier. But this was our attempt to still allow the board to have some, oversight over the site plan process if we chose to go down the route of strictly building permit only, as she had suggested. So
And yeah.
go ahead, Gabe.
And I think just also to clarify a lot of, so the state, if we read through several, so towns have already submitted their bylaws as a, from this past spring town meeting, and towns have gotten responses from the AG's office regarding this. So this was also an attempt to kind of ahead of time address the common concerns we've seen come up in these AG letters. For example, a lot of towns do have existing accessory apartment bylaws. What towns have been doing, kind of based on the state's sample bylaws and things of that nature, is they'll break that into what's called a protected use ADU and then a local ADU. And the local ADU is basically anything that isn't protected under state law. And if you read the letters from the state, they're very particular about. It does make the bylaws more complex, and I think if you read the letters, they're a little, they'll say, we approve this, but we want you to fix it, even though it's pretty straightforward and makes sense. They really want you to drill down into okay, local ADUs, you approve them through special permit. It's exactly like this. Protected use ADUs are by right or by site plan review. It's exactly like this. They're very particular about how you word it. I think with good reason. So we were kind of trying to, while taking, Tracy's, the commissioner's suggestions into account, kind of trying to address all these different variables in one draft. So, but I mean, yeah, we're certainly happy to rewrite this to just make it about changing it to just by right for 900 square feet.
Yeah, what was I? Yeah. Went back. I haven't had the chance to see all of this input from whomever, commissioner, I don't know what commissioner it is, even. I say we stay as conservative as we can until it settles out. Other towns do other things. We saw that with marijuana, for example. I think we start conservative, and so it's the 900 feet, and it's with site plan review. I do have, I'm not sure whether it's time yet, but there was someplace down there where it talked about if there's more than one, and the way the wording was, I thought it'd be possible to, the one hasn't been built yet, so there isn't any yet, so you get an okay on a second one, and then you go back and you build the first one, or,
That relates to one issue I have, in that in several places in the draft document, it refers to, I think, in particular, the protected use ADU is defined as something that is located or proposed to be located on a lot with a pre-existing principal dwelling, and that kind of touches on
That's what
on what
I'm
you're asking about,
talking
because with that definition, you're requiring I mean, you can get into some unusual timing situations, but fundamentally, to me, the problem I have with that is that it precludes the possibility of constructing a principal dwelling and an accessory to that principal dwelling concurrently. And some of the language in the use table sort of potentially confuses that matter. But yeah, I think if we're comfortable with keeping it simple, that is, the 900 square foot ADU being the one that may be a protected use, and anything else being an accessory apartment, which is the rough equivalent of the local ADU definitions that Gabe mentioned. With this kind of reduces down to the way we want. I think the way we want the regulations to be understood is that pretty much this is in line with the statute and the HLC regulations, that one protected use ADU, not the 900 square feet or less, you get by right on one lot. The lot has to contain at least one, or it doesn't need to contain a pre-existing principal dwelling. You know, there's nothing in the statute or the regs that requires that kind of sequencing. Obviously, you're not going to build an accessory unit where there is no principal dwelling to which it can be an accessory. That just sort of, you don't have to say that.
Yeah.
But by saying that the protected use accessory ADU must go along with a pre-existing principal dwelling, that means you cannot build your principal dwelling and the accessory unit at the same time. You have to build the principal dwelling, get that done, get the certificate of occupancy, then you can go back and get your permits for the ADU. That, I suspect, would be viewed as an unreasonable regulation in the context of the state law and regs.
There ought to be a way to word that.
Now, if we simply eliminate the pre-existing wording, that solves that problem. Because now all we need to say is that an ADU is on the same lot as a principal dwelling. And like I said, it goes without saying that the ADU can't be an ADU without a principal dwelling.
Right.
But you can do them at the same time. However rare that might happen in practice, nevertheless, that's all we really need to say.
Maybe the ADU can't have an occupancy permit until the principal has an occupancy permit.
I think that would be in the purview of the building commissioner, but yes.
No, we make the law that says to cover the base you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, I mean, you don't have an accessory unit until you have a principal dwelling.
Well-
there are two situations that strike me as ambiguous right now, and I don't know if the state law addresses them in any way whatsoever. The first thing in my mind is a lot that has a single dwelling unit or period of 900 or less square feet, and they want to build a bigger unit to change their principal dwelling and add that as an accessory use separately.
That's what, if you don't, sorry to cut you off, Justin,
Yeah.
but this was a suggestion that was made in response to that exact thing that's been playing out. Kind of the switching of what is the principal versus what is the accessory. We've seen that, but and also, the commissioner had mentioned that has been a problem, and she did, talk to council a bit about that, but I'm waiting for council to really weigh in on this language, because I suspect the same as Dave, that I don't see how we can. I could foresee issues with the way that definition is drafted. I could see the AG denying the bylaw.
The other thing I was thinking about is duplexes, where people separately own parts of a building that is X number of dwelling units, square footage, and then one of them is the first to apply for a accessory dwelling unit on that lot. How does that play out? Like, if do they each get one? Do they not? I don't know if the law clarifies that, but
Per lot. So
Yes.
my understanding is it's whomever gets it first is
Yeah, the law and the regulations are pretty clear on that.
okay.
One by right ADU per lot,
right.
no matter how many principal dwellings are on that lot.
Right.
So it's basically first come, first serve.
Yeah. It's odd, but yes. It's
Aren't we still waiting for guidance from the state about all of this?
no, not the
Where's the,
state.
because like that was true with the MBTA. We're charging ahead and trying to make laws.
It's been pretty, there's model bylaws from the state. The Attorney General's office has been issuing corrections on these bylaws for, like, there's tons of letters they've sent out to towns at this point. I think my understanding is the guidance on this is pretty clear at this point from the state.
You know, the
I haven't seen it.
state has issued a complete set of regulations for this.
And model bylaw language that
Regulations, model bylaws, there's probably a frequently asked questions on their HLC website as well.
right. And what I will say is this is the key one of the key things that we were trying to accomplish with this draft is it's short on purpose and it cites the law on purpose. So we're not, the model bylaw language was really just a reiteration of the regulations, which you can have if you would like, but it's going to be pages and pages of text that say the exact same thing as the law, which is in force anyway. So we were trying to basically keep it simple. The salient points that we need to provide elaboration on, don't overcomplicate it, and then whatever the towns can have discretion over under the regs, speak to those particular points, and keep it,
Yeah, some of the points over which we have discretion are, do we or do we not allow ADUs to be used as short-term rentals? Do we or do we not allow more than one ADU with the additional ones by special permit? Or to what extent do we have any additional dimensional requirements we want to impose on them? Any other additional requirements? And the draft here basically says no new dimensional regulations. The draft here says no short-term rentals, and the draft here lays out, proposes and that's something I think we can improve upon that with the simplifications we've already talked about in terms of when do you need a special permit. The other thing that I notice in the draft, and this is also, do we as a board want to do this? We are required to allow these by right ADUs, and keep in mind by right and maybe site plan review.
Right.
I want to keep saying that. Do we allow this? We are required to allow it in any zoning district that allows single family homes.
Yes.
That means that we do not have to allow by right ADUs in neighborhood business, community business, industrial, office light industry, or village mixed use, because those zones do not allow single family homes. Now, it doesn't mean we can't. We can allow the ADUs in those zones, but we're not required to. So that's a question for us. Do we want to allow these protected use ADUs in the business zones and in village mixed use?
But if you have a pre-existing non-conforming single-family home in an OLI or I district, they can get they are entitled to
So
a protected use ADU.
this would say, and there's no harm, I think, because it's a pre-existing non-conforming use. We can say
Just clarify
that,
in the language.
yes, if you're reading the zoning bylaw, you can see that these ADUs are allowed in these zones in which new residential or new single families cannot be built, but there may be existing single families in those zones.
Yeah, right. It's an attempt to kind of capture all the nuanced
Yeah.
things that can occur, and it
Yeah.
So,
Does,
yeah, I completely support keeping it simple and just having, this is a protected ADU and this is what it means. And then everything else kind of goes to accessory apartments or whatever else that's going to be in our bylaws. I guess I have a question about the site plan review. So, and I can't really peel this apart in my mind. Most of the time when I've been here, it's a site plan plus the special permit, right? So if it's a site plan without a special permit and they meet the dimensional requirements and the setbacks, what do we have discretion on or can we influence during that meeting?
yeah, it's limited really. I mean, you can, if there is a problem that arises, for example, I always use this example of like, you have a hearing for site plan and a neighbor presents a problem that's within, a reasonable standard. Like the board can negotiate with the developer to adjust the site plan to be in response to that concern that was raised. So you can, and you can require changes to the site plan and, the standards and how, parking, and there's some flexibility, but typically it's limited to what the board can.
Like what? So yeah, I'm just trying to get like the real examples. Like what kind of changes you could say aesthetically the neighbor wants something else? Or-
No. What site
here's
plan?
what I'm worried about is to have a hearing and have it be like almost nothing we can do and frustrate people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I think they're used to seeing a special permit hearing
Right.
where there is discretion. So I'm all for like, this is a new thing. We want to stay close to what's going on. But that's what I'm worried about is that a neighbor comes in, they have complaints and it's kind of like tough luck, because we can't really require anything because it meets the standards of, the way I'm looking at it, right? It's like if somebody wants to put this in the middle of their backyard and it meets the setbacks and all the dimensional requirements, there's not a lot that can be done, right? So it may get people aggravated, but I don't know. How do we communicate what is and isn't flexible about it before somebody comes in? Because that's what I would be worried about.
Yeah, I think we would, probably have some, information prepared ahead of time to just clearly explain like what site plan review is. And site plan review, it's literally the site. Like I always say, you start regulating a building through site plan review, that's a different thing. That's building code, that's a different department. You focus on the site impacts to the site, drainage mainly, parking mainly. Those are like the key things.
Okay.
Parking is huge, always kind of has been, but stormwater implications, making sure that, you're aligning with the mass DEP stormwater standards, that type of thing, that's site plan. And I think our attempt, to your point, to make a qualifying protected use ADU make it a Y instead of like a site plan review was that it kind of clearly delineates and kind of cuts through some of the issues that you just highlighted. People are going to be complaining, or maybe not complaining, maybe in support, doesn't matter, whatever, but people who do have maybe, genuine concerns will come and think that the board has more power than maybe they do. It's like the review and the ability to influence through site plan is limited. So we're wondering if.
Yeah, I mean,
If you
I get the drainage. The drainage thing could be helpful if people have concern. I could see that being a common concern about it, and then it being, stated here that it meets the standards or whatever. I mean, that could clear some stuff up. But I would say if we're doing it, just to say, hey, like these are the items we're reviewing. It's a site plan, not a special permit, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, whatever. I made my point.
a few minutes ago, we just approved a site plan without a special permit. You recall?
Approved.
Yes.
Yeah,
The decision we just
277
voted on.
Providence Road.
Right, and we had people
With
that
only a
complained.
special-
We had people that supported and then also had points against. But to Greg's point, we couldn't really do anything for the people that had, because it met all of the requirements in that site plan, so there wasn't really much leeway that we as a board had.
But the people who had concerns had an avenue to talk about it and to find out what the story is.
Right.
And
I just
that's
think-
my point.
Yeah.
I think we'll find out, maybe we'll find out, no problem.
Yep.
Or we'll find out fairly soon where the problems are.
I just
But
think,
I
to Greg's
just, I
point,
say openness, give people a chance. They seem to like to have communication paths, maybe even official, not on Facebook, about this.
Yeah, I think to Bob's point, in my mind, having a site plan review, you get the neighbors and everyone else to know, hey, this is going on. You can come here to learn more and talk about it. And that's potentially months before you have an excavator in your neighbor's backyard digging a foundation for something, and you're like, what's going on there? Why is this going on? Why didn't I know about it?
Yeah.
They're adding another building, not just they're changing the house.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get the function of it. I just want to make sure people understand what is and isn't on the table when you come to the meeting. That's
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a valid
We'll
point.
cover that base.
And just to kind of play devil's advocate, for a garage or like in addition to a home, we kind of are like treating these protected use ADUs as similar to that, right? You don't really have a site plan approval process if you want to build a garage in your backyard. There's very minimal drainage and stormwater impacts from the buildings of this footprint, and our kind of suggestion of considering it just by right without that additional review process was just because the impacts will be very minimal. But I hear your points about giving people the opportunity to learn, and I think that's important too. So I just wanted to
It's also a simple path forward.
Yeah.
It would let us get on to item, whatever it is on the agenda.
just laying out,
Yeah.
because I do understand what Greg is saying, where it can be quite confusing for somebody who's a member of the public to come in and say, I thought
So-
they would be influencing this in a different way.
Is there anything more we need to do about this tonight?
The one other point that I wanted to make was, looking down in the draft here that's on the screen, it struck me that 5.13.1.3, which basically talks about the special permit requirements, that's already encoded in the use table, so it struck me as being completely redundant.
Yep, we can remove it if that's preferred. Yeah, whatever we can streamline, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and we've already talked about the previous one, 513.1.2, which is that intermediate step, which I think we've already decided we're not interested in right now.
Yeah, we'll be rewriting 5.13.1.2, so that
So I think,
there's no tiered 1200 is not a factor in this.
yeah, and I'll be interested in seeing the result, the next result. And we're looking at putting this on the warrant for the fall town meeting, so we're getting close
Yes.
to when we need to have it nailed down.
Right.
So maybe we'll have this at the next board meeting. Maybe we'll have something that is ready or almost ready for town meeting with no more than a little bit of wordsmithing, maybe.
Yeah. And if I may, council did not have an opportunity to provide comments. They did a preliminary review of this draft and said there were no issues from their perspective, but he said, let me just take like another final look. I won't be able to get to it before the planning board meeting tonight, but just that's also an additional like level of review that we can talk about that when we're ready for the next meeting.
So it sounds like we have a path forward here.
Yeah, I would
A
think.
better sense of what the board's interested in.
Yes.
I will say there's a member of the public whose hand is raised on Zoom.
Well, go ahead. can. Tell us who you are.
Uh,
Oh, Bill.
Good evening. Bill Yeomans from 297 Providence Road in South Grafton. Is this the public hearing for this?
No,
No, discussion item. We're discussing what
Okay,
to draft up to have a hearing about for
there
town
will be a
meeting.
public hearing probably late September.
okay. May I make a comment at this point?
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question relative to the ADU. I attended the seminar that was put on by the proper department, perhaps 3 or 4 months ago, and it was very well done. They completed all of the background and, trying to, it was like a charrette to get the information out. At that point, I raised the question in writing to the appropriate parties that I felt that the 900 square foot should be allowed for anyone that wants to put in an ADU. For example, if I have a 1,500 square foot house, then the 900 square foot doesn't apply. It can be the smaller of the number. It's either 750 square feet, which would be half of my square footage of livable area in the house. And I raised the question that a handicapped accessible 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and a living space, to me, requires more floor area to accommodate someone that may be in a walker, may be in a wheelchair, or in a walker heading to a wheelchair. And I think that the owner, and I just happened to see this on your agenda this evening, but I think that, and I raised the question that the 900 square foot livable area should be available to anyone, not just the person that has a 2,400 square foot home where they're seeking that they can do a 1,200 square foot area with accommodations from the board for a special permit or whatever you're going to do. But it's the person living in a 1,500 square foot house. And there are many, many houses in the older parts of Grafton where there is a small house on a larger piece of land that would accommodate an accessory dwelling unit. But I ask that the board carefully consider making the 900 square foot available as almost, anyone can build, have that set as the standard rather than the 750. Because I do feel the way the question is posed in the protected use, it says not larger in gross floor area than half the gross floor area of the proposed principal dwelling unit, whichever is smaller. If I have a small house in the town, and I want to build a more or less a granny flat up in the back of my yard and give my house to, my kids or to rent it, that I'm really restricted on the handicapped accessible area. And I raised this question at the same time that I wrote to the state about it. And it was set at that 750 level. I've also talked to architects, and there is nothing set in stone that would amplify my concern that a handicapped apartment needs more square footage to properly accommodate an older person who may be the next resident of this accessory dwelling unit. And there is nothing out there, as far as the architects I've talked to, that would indicate that, you know, my theory is set in some text. But I do know from the simple amount of design I've done in additions and in buildings that it does require more accommodation to a senior person who is in a walker or is heading to a wheelchair that may want to take advantage of this. And I ask you to carefully consider having not the 750, but having the 900 square foot available, and eliminate the clause that says that half the area of, you know, the principal residence, if the principal resident or the principal house, the existing house on the lot, is a small house, then that person who wishes to put in an ADU is handicapped accessible for an elderly parent or perhaps a child that they want to be more self-sustaining, and to see that child be in an accommodation as they grow older, I think it would better accommodate that handicapped person. And thank you, Mr. Chair, and for allowing me the opportunity to speak.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, let me give you two responses to that. Number one is our current zoning bylaw allows accessory apartments as distinct from these protected use ADUs. We allow accessory apartments with no size limitations whatsoever, and they are reviewable by special permit. So the special permit's a discretionary review, which gives the board the opportunity to, you know, take these situations that don't fit the protected use ADU definition and look at them and say, yeah, that works, that's appropriate, we will approve it. So that's in place already. The proposed bylaw language also makes a distinction between ADUs in general and protected use ADUs, and it's only the protected use ADUs that have the 900 square foot half the living area restriction on them, and those are the ones that we are required to allow by right. But there's nothing in here that says we can't allow other forms of ADUs for other reasons, and that's something that
Under what approval?
Well,
that if we wanted to pursue that route, we would have to, you know, nail that down, because, you know.
yeah, I appreciate and respect your point. However, if I want to put in an ADU and I don't want to do an accessory apartment, it's nothing to do with a family member, but I have a friend who has a child who is handicapped but mobile, I want to have the opportunity to give that, make that available to anyone. It requires further discussion and further research on my part, but I just ask that the board carefully review what I brought up, because I do think that in its present form, the way that section is written, and it was discussed earlier, it's under the protected use ADU section, previous to the one that's on the screen presently, that it should be a greater accommodation to allow me to design through an architect a better accommodation to a handicap or mobility impaired individual. And thank you again. And you have much to discuss tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to.
Well, thank you for bringing that matter up.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Anything else on this?
I have nothing more.
Good. Well, if no one objects, we'll move right along to bills.
I approve, motion to approve the payment of the bills.
Second.
Moved and
Authorized payment
seconded.
of
Is there
bills.
any discussion? Ray doesn't have to vote on this, so we can take a voice vote, right?
Yes.
I think so.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Unanimously. Staff report.
Okay, so we have our new office assistant starting on the 2nd, so we're very excited. Natalia and I were brainstorming just her initial onboarding, getting her, all her materials that she needs, and making sure that she has a nice experience on her first day and first week, and we're kind of coordinating that. It is budget season, so I am focusing on predominantly the capital budget to make sure that we're accounting for all of the projects and long range plans that we are responsible for updating and making sure that we are implementing. So I am more than happy to coordinate with the board and show them, show you my initial thoughts. I didn't draft anything for this evening, but the operational budget is pretty standard. It's the same essentially the same line items every year with slight increases, but the capital budget will be interesting. Namely, we will be required to comply with Municipal Vulnerabilities Preparedness 2.0. It's
Yes,
called.
MVP 2.0. coming
Yep.
up.
So I'm just trying to stay on top of everything that's going on at the state level and making sure that everything is aligning with our goals and our master plan, but also what we're required to do. So that's kind of something I'm just getting my head around. We had an initial conversation with department heads the other day, so stay tuned for that. A lot of inquiries from developers, just a lot of technical assistance being provided lately. A lot of subdivisions are trying to wrap up and eventually seek out their determinations of completeness. Bull Meadow, Grafton Hill, Woodland Hill had initially inquired about potentially getting, the road acceptance on for a fall town meeting. Probably not going to happen because it needs a weatherization period for the pavement. So, but it's just, we're getting back to our old ways. We'll have busier agendas, and I think other than that, I did finally get my head back into the flexible development DLTA work that CMRPC has been helping us with. They did a really great job. It's been a lot of in-depth research, interviewing other planners, interviewing regional planning agencies, and just doing a lot of analysis on findings so that we can understand how this is being addressed across the state. So, yep, other than that, it's business as usual. Happy to speak to anything in particular or answer any questions on
Anything?
any projects.
Anything? Okay, correspondence. I noticed 2 messages saying that ADUs were being built. And I said, what? We should have known about that. And we didn't. And maybe we shouldn't have, but I think we should have. And that's what I think. Okay? You might pass that on, that the bylaw does require site plan at the moment. The state law doesn't say we can't require site plan, and the bylaw says the planning board does site plan. So the building inspector needs to consider that.
The bylaw, we're not specifically stating yet that the board is.
As I recall, we covered that base some months ago, where there's a clause in the bylaw that says anything that is not listed in the use table is not listed as Y in the use table requires a site plan review.
So, you saying that these ADUs do require?
I thought that's what when we were discussing whether to update the ADUs in the bylaw, I
Okay.
remember that point. In fact, it was you, Bob, who pointed that particular clause out.
So, maybe we should pass that along to her and ask council if necessary.
Okay.
I noticed that, a lot of the sign bylaw enforcements aren't happening anymore. Apparently she has a different idea about what our sign bylaw says. You have
Any,
shark tins, you have the small signs lining the road, without permits. Or permit numbers, I think permit numbers are still in there.
yes, we do
I know,
require
don't-
permit numbers on our signs.
But I could
which
tell
is
if they had a
interesting.
permit, if they had a number. Yeah,
Yeah, we can coordinate about where the violations are.
enough. Someone mentioned we're having a no-hitter before we got there, and he's been properly chastised. I thought we were gonna make it under the last one, but we are not. Planning board representatives, town committees, and CMRPC. We get them all the time, but a message just came around today about training opportunities that are very worthwhile. And I don't know, we should be able to make it so it doesn't cost anybody
There is,
anything.
yeah, there is, from talking to staff over the past several years, there is an opportunity for board members, including us, to attend conference type things that we find interesting relating to our service on a board. So if there's something you want to sign up for, even if it costs money, you can reach out to staff and can figure out how to make that possible. There's probably is some sort of like top limit, but I don't think I've seen anyone hit that.
It doesn't come up very much. You know, I haven't gotten mileage for going to Worcester for $1.5 million CMRPC meetings, for example. But, no, it's come up, or it's been, it was mentioned to me back when I was new. And just, I wanted to encourage everybody, particularly the ones who are newer. You can come and tell us what we're doing wrong.
And if you want to pay out of pocket and not get it reimbursed, all the power to you. But
We
Okay.
do have money.
Now, anybody else have anything to report?
Not from me.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded, not debatable. Well, we'll do this. Justin,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Raymond,
Aye.
Not that Ray
and
gets
I
the vote.
vote aye. We are adjourned unanimously.
Thank you.